So one thing that I wanted to kind of talk about today, I think this will be kind of something that's more, I guess, relevant to me than I'm usually inclined to share. And I think the whole point of me wanting to, I guess, kind of do what I'm doing, this idea of just like documenting and capturing, I guess, my thoughts on different things. The whole point of this, and the name of the channel that I have now currently is Desmond's Digital Diary. And I think for now that name is suitable. I think I could perhaps tweak it at some point, but I just finished finals at UC Berkeley, finishing my first year out, and I was kind of thinking about some things that I was kind of going through, that I was feeling, and I was wondering how much, I guess, I would want to reveal, like, within this format. And I was thinking to myself, like, the point of me wanting to do this was to be as authentic as possible, and just as real as possible, so that I can, in the future, look back on this and like be able to, I guess, see who I was as a person then, and I guess kind of see the things that I was thinking about, the things that I was dealing with. Maybe it give me some sense of perspective for the future, like that future version of me, whoever they are, if they're watching this. But I realized that I owe it to myself, like I was saying, to just be as real and authentic as I possibly can. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about that kind of relates to this idea of being authentic is just, I guess, realizing, when in a certain situation, no matter what it may be, I think having the ability to step back and realize that, you might be the problem in a situation. And I think it takes a lot of guts, and I think it takes some humility, and I think it requires a level of just being, introspective of yourself. And I think it's a hard thing to learn and a hard thing to master. And I think that's something that I've struggled with, just realizing in situations where, maybe the problem really is me. Maybe, this is something that I need to work on, and, it's not, anyone else's fault, or no one else is to be blamed but myself. And I don't know why that's such a hard thing to, I guess, to come to terms with. I think we just have this, I guess, maybe speaking towards me, I have this kind of ego, maybe, that I've lived with, that this kind of ego that I've lived with, that maybe it possibly, it can be me who's in the wrong. Like, it's not me, it's definitely the other person, or it's definitely, the world. Like, I'm not the one doing anything wrong. It's the world. And I think, I guess I'm trying to decipher how much of that comes as a survival tactic of just trying to just, have this greater sense of self-belief in self, in order to, make it through whatever situation I might be struggling with. Maybe that's like a coping mechanism that helps me go through whatever those situations might be. But I won't sit here, I guess, and say that that's every situation. I think there are definitely situations where I just need to have a bit more accountability. And I need to have a bit more, not just accountability, but having the humility and also the maturity to just take responsibility and also to take action. I think holding yourself accountable is just the first step. And I think in order to overcome, maybe that victim mentality or just not wanting to, take the blame for a situation when maybe it is, your responsibility to do. I think it takes a lot of work. And I think there are situations where, we can give ourselves grace. With me being 23, I realized that there's a lot of things in this world, that I'm just unaware of. And I have to take the steps to be able to change that as I continue to get older. I think at a certain point, we become liable for everything that we do. We can't place blame on things that happened years ago. We can't continue to, live in this victim mentality. And this doesn't go for, this is not like the case for everything. That's not, what I say it for. Because I think there are some situations where some stuff is out of your control, and there are just higher systems in place that that you cannot take the responsibility for the actions of these other systems. That's going into other stuff, but I more so wanted this to be a personal record or account of just wanting to, I think, be better in a lot of ways. And I'm not sure exactly what might be the first step. I guess, maybe I should use these moments as a way to maybe troubleshoot it in real time. I guess one of the things I will say is that another thing that I feel like I've been trying to figure out with just taking accountability is kind of just more so just processing what I may even be feeling in a situation. I think that may be one of my greatest weaknesses. It's just my ability to accurately assess a situation and process it, to the best of my ability. I think I'm just not that great at it. I think maybe, I can afford to have a bit more emotional intelligence, I think, in situations. And I'm realizing that these are things that, are not necessarily taught to you. These are things that you kind of learn as you develop and have more relationships in your life. And I think it's something that I need to just write down on a list and just continue to work at. And it's hard to practice. If you're training for a race, you can understand that, okay, if I'm training for a 5K and I have this training plan, and I'm telling myself I'm going to do this, 3 or 4 times a week, it's easy to notice or to realize that this running is going to translate directly to this 5K that I have to do. But I feel like within the moment of trying to gain emotional intelligence, trying to, not be biased to your own self in every situation, I think that's a much harder thing to try to understand and to try to tackle. And I think part of me wanting to kind of document and talk about different things is to also, I guess, give myself the space to talk out loud in a way that maybe I normally would not do. Maybe the only situation where this might occur is if I'm talking to a friend. But obviously, the beauty of this is that I have this in recording. Like, this is something that I can look back on. A tangible thing that I can look back on and compare. And I think that's a really beautiful thing that I've set up for myself. And I'm grateful to have this avenue to be able to do that. And I'm hoping that if there is a future, let me fix that. I'm hoping that the future version of me is looking back and is able to see how much growth they've made in this area. That is my hope for this. And if not, then the hope is that, they're working on it and it'll happen eventually. But I know, it takes time. And I just want to take responsibility for my part in situations where, it just might be my fault. And this can be like anything, like a relationship, something to do with your family. This could be like any situation. But yeah, I think this taking accountability is a big part. And I feel like you have to really feel it. You have to really be honest with that. I think it's easy to say I'm sorry, but maybe it's not as easy to actually feel sorry, to actually feel, that you're the one in the wrong. And I think, as I was saying before, it's not enough to just say sorry. I think to be apologetic, I think it should be reframed as an action word. To be apologetic in the sense that I'm sorry and therefore I would do these things differently. I think that's the way it should be viewed. And wanting to take accountability and I guess be more open to wanting to make actionable steps into, being better for those around me. I think I just want to list a couple goals and things that I'm hoping to achieve and work on in myself. Obviously, being 23, there's a lot of things that I want to accomplish in this life. A lot of experiences that I want to have. And there's a lot of people I want to meet, a lot of things I want to do. But I know deep down that there are some things that, maybe we shouldn't have the luxury of achieving, if we're not who we need to be, inside and within our hearts. And I think just realizing that it's important to take time to work on those internal things. Because as you get older, as you get a little bit more money in your pocket, a little bit more influence, for those in your life, I think it's important to have had these things, dissected and worked out, before you start these other major, things or additions in your life. And I think that's something I'm really hoping for myself. I know I'm being very vague. But I guess a couple other things I'm hoping for. And I don't mean couple and two. I know it took me a minute to realize. I had asked someone in college, I was like, when I say a couple, I mean it as a few things. A couple literally is just two. And I was like, got it. Okay. But I'm gonna just continue how I say it. So I'm gonna just name off a couple things that I feel like I want to get better at and that I want for myself at some point. I think the first thing being, I would like to just, be a better friend to, those around me. I feel like there's a lot of ways in which maybe I don't show up the way that I should and the way that I need to. And just wishing that, I did. And these can be friends like immediately close in terms of distance, like they're just closer by. Just being more, more open to reaching out, being more open, to just congregating more, being in the same place more, even just like phone calls. I guess it's hard for me to understand, like, why that's always been like a difficult thing for me to do. Why is it always difficult for me to like, I guess, have those connections to the point where it feels like I can do that in a way that feels natural. It's like always been kind of difficult for me to kind of open up in that way and feel comfortable doing those things. So I think one is, just being a better friend to those around me, being a better acquaintance. I think you can be better. I can be better on every level, whether it's close relationships or acquaintances or people I just met. I think I can be better at every level. And I think I need to figure out how to work on that, because I feel like that's a goal I've always had. And I think it's too easy to get stuck in who we are and what we like and how we are and how we behave. I think I want to be self-critical and say that it probably is more than likely a cop-out for me. And it forces me to keep myself out of discomfort, to keep myself out of situations where, I'm not as comfortable as I would like to be. And I think obviously that's a problem. We've all heard the analogy. You have to beat a sword to make it sharp. Iron sharpens iron. Diamonds are made under intense pressure. Situations of discomfort are what, brings you closer to, who you want to be. So, I guess with that said, number one being, I can stand to be a bit more uncomfortable in order to be better in a number of situations that I just listed off. Whether it's, looking at a tier list, whether it's close friend or acquaintance, I think those are areas that I would like to be better in. I guess number two is family. I wish that, especially being here in California, just wishing that I had those closer connections and just a deeper relationship with my family. And I think especially with the distance, it's made it harder to feel less connected just because they are in Mississippi and I'm, currently here in California. Makes it harder to feel, as close. And I think even when I was home, just realizing now that I didn't appreciate, I guess what I had, while I had it. And also as I'm getting older, my parents are getting older. I think just wanting to take more advantage of the time that I have, because I know there's a lot of people who, don't have their parents and they would love the opportunity that I have. So I guess in terms of family, just wishing that I could be, a better son, wishing that I could be a better brother, to my younger brother, to my older sister. Wishing I could be a better grandson, a better nephew. Just all those different things. With this reaching out, having conversations, but not in the normal sense of like just check-ins, having actual like conversations where it's a dynamic dialogue between both individuals, where you're asking questions. It's not just like, oh, this is what's going on. It's like, how are you? How have you been feeling lately? What is something you're hoping for in the next few weeks? What was one thing that happened that, made you angry or made you upset? One thing that made you happy? I think we owe it to ourselves and to our family members to be intentional about the relationship that we have. Because I think there's nothing more important than a relationship and community. And I don't know why it's taking me so long to, realize these things. We take for granted the things that we have sometimes. And I think it's important to take a step back sometimes and just learn to have gratitude and to be open. That's like one of the things that I've always struggled with. I'm not a very open person. I keep a lot of things close to the heart. And I think, like I was saying before, we can afford to live in discomfort in order to grow in the ways that we want to grow. And I don't want to let discomfort keep me from, I don't want to let being comfortable keep me from the person that I want to be, and like the things I want to do and things I want to experience and achieve. And I refuse to let that happen. So, one being, friendships to acquaintances, and two being, family members, immediate and extended. I think I just want to take accountability in my life and be apologetic to everyone in my life. Not in just the sense that I'm sorry, but in the sense that I'm sorry, and here's what I'm going to do about it. One thing that one of my teachers from church would say, she would say, don't be sorry, be better. And I think that's the last note that I'm going to leave off on. Thank you.